Welcome back to the Transform Evolve channel. It is the new year, and I know everybody has been buzzing about making change. And so I wanted to do a video about the fact that you can do this, right? That you are able to succeed at whatever it is you put your mind to. So let's kind of dive in. The thing that I wanted to really focus in on here is asking a question. Why does everyone wait until January 1 to start making some changes in their life? And when January 2nd hits, you stop, right? So I want to focus in on we're about to hit February 1. We're almost through the month of January. And why not make each month a kind of a New Year's month in a way? I want to kind of expand on that. So, for instance, everybody's like, oh, let's do a New Year's resolution. And most people will start at a task, whether it's to lose weight, get physically fit, make more money, change certain habits in your life. Maybe it's to quit drinking, quit smoking, etc. And oftentimes we lose momentum and we end up stopping. We don't continue with the goal that we were wanting to achieve. And so it just hit me the other day, with a lot of what we teach, a lot of what I coach people through one on one is how do we maintain momentum? How do we increase momentum? How do we overcome the momentum that's already in our life? So I want to kind of give a really quick example of what I mean when I say momentum. If you were to imagine you're driving a car on a highway, and let's just assume it's a straight stretch of highway, and you shut the engine off. So there's no more input into driving the car down the road. And let's say the car's in neutral. And so the car's just rolling, right? You're not putting your foot on the brake and the road is flat. Well, that's kind of like momentum. Even though you're not adding anymore, there's still momentum in the vehicle and it needs to go a ways before it slows down on its own. Gravity, friction of the tires on the road, etc. So that's a really good analogy to help us understand momentum. So when it comes to making changes in our life, we have a certain set of momentum already going on, whatever it is you're trying to do. So if we remove, say, a habit, there's still a momentum there. I'm trying to think of a really good way to explain this. Say, for instance, you have a habit of waking up at 10 o'clock every morning because you find it difficult to wake up any earlier. And your desire is, I want to start waking up early. Just an easy example. So you're going to do, maybe there's some hypnosis scripts you've tried. Maybe there's just self-talk, self-motivation that you've tried. And so you go to bed a little bit earlier, but you're having trouble falling asleep because your body clock is adjusted to waking up at 10 a.m. So you lay in bed, you set multiple alarms for the next morning, you finally go to sleep. And let's say the alarm goes off and you're excited, you're motivated to make this change. So you get up, you're really groggy, you're trying to get adjusted. The second day comes along, and let's say you're able to go to bed a little bit earlier and you set multiple alarms. Well, this pattern is going to continue happening in this particular circumstance where you're slowly rewinding your body clock, but that's momentum. That is a set of that is a style of momentum in your life that's not motivating, moving you in the direction of what you've always been doing. Let's look at if somebody's willing to, or somebody is wanting to lose weight. And so they've looked at their diet. And I'm going to raise my hand with you guys that I have had this issue in the past where I have certain habits, certain behaviors that I do. Like, let's say I'm really tired and I just want to veg. I want to sit on the couch, watch a good show on, some streaming service. And as I'm watching that, all of a sudden I'll get like a craving. And a while back, it used to be Kit Kat bars. I used to love eating chocolate Kit Kat bars. And I'll tell you, they weren't good for me. I mean, I put on a lot of visceral fat and a lot of other things in that process. But I've noticed that that's another form of momentum. See, it's like, and sometimes these places of momentum don't get triggered until certain events happen. So if you're wanting to make change in your life, it's really important for us to understand that momentum is a big deal and it's not insurmountable. It's not something that you can it's not something that's going to keep you from accomplishing your goal, but it's just good to know about it because then you can start observing how the momentum is shifting. Going back to, wanting to wake up earlier or something like that. That's the same situation. It's like you can watch and how it's a little bit easier for you to go to bed earlier and it's a little easier for you to wake up earlier. You're still getting the same amount of hours of sleep in the night, but you're shifting when it is you go to bed and when it is you wake up. So I wanted to look at that aspect like, okay, what is momentum? How does it affect us? And when people stop, so let's say it's January, whatever, and you're one of those people that had goals, ambitions, and you wrote them down and started to do it, and then say, whatever, 5 days, 10 days go by, and all of a sudden you're stopping. The reason people ultimately stop is they're not willing to push through this momentum shift. So that's why I'm asking, it's almost February 1. Why not do it again? And why not do it on March 1st and April 1st and so on? So something that I realized a while back, and it's very helpful, is kind of a self accountability. We need a feedback loop. How does a person know if what they're doing is accomplishing whatever it is that they desired? It's through feedback. And the more often we get feedback, the better we're going to achieve the goal. If you waited 1 year, let's look at a business. If you had a business, just you can imagine if you don't run your own company, you can imagine you're working for a company and you can sit down for a minute in whatever position you have in the company or in the business, the workplace. You can imagine how you're already giving feedback, right? There's data that needs to be processed. Most of the time, I would say almost all companies have some form of data gathering, and usually it's at point of sale. So when you're at the register or you're ordering stuff on a computer, that's a lot of feedback that's going back to whoever is responsible to process that data. But imagine a company that only waited once a year to get feedback. How would they know what material to order, what product to buy, what pricing to set things at? You can imagine that there's lots of room for error in that 1 year. So the shorter the feedback cycle, so taking that same business, if they were to go quarterly or even monthly on the feedback cycle. So if that works for businesses, right? Like I think all of us can agree if you're going to run a successful business, you must have feedback. And the shorter the duration between feedback points, the more accurate and the more faster you can respond to whatever circumstances are going on in reality that may or may not be affecting your business. So if that's positive and that works for a business, my question to you is, why not run your life like a business? Here at Transform Evolve, we believe that everyone deserves to live a legendary life. So with that being said, what does legendary mean to you? And if you're going to run a business successfully, why not run your life successfully? So if you were to have feedback in your life, what does that look like? How often should you be receiving feedback in your life? People will oftentimes say, oh, you should write your goals down. I am a firm believer that writing your goals down means a lot. It'll help you a lot in the process, but it stops short most of the time. So what I would propose is that you look at writing your goals down. So let's say you did that January 1, you wrote your goals down. What are you doing with those goals? Did you just write it down and forget about it? Or are you reviewing it at least weekly? And are you taking the goals to the next step? Which, you could write a goal down of, I want to lose weight. Okay, fantastic. Now, what is the next step? What should you be doing in order to achieve the goal of losing weight? Oftentimes, we refer to these as action steps. It's very easy to picture a staircase, going from one floor of a home to a second floor of a home or a business or an apartment complex or a hotel. If you look at those stairs, you're trying to go from the first floor to the next floor. Well, there's multiple steps going up, depending on how many feet between. It might be 15 steps, it might be 20 steps, but there's many steps to get you from one floor to the next floor. So if we just imagine that our life in the current moment in time is on the first floor and we're trying to achieve a goal, which is on the second floor, you can imagine then that there's going to be multiple steps to get you to that second floor. So the same thing goes with our goal setting is we need to dissect or break down what we wrote on the paper as our goal to say, okay, well, I need to start taking these particular action steps. Now, in previous videos, we talked a lot about SMART goal. I'll go over it again for you. SMART goal is specific, as S is specific, M is measurable, A is actually achievable, R is realistic, and T is timed. So any goal that you put together, be it a New Year's resolution, a February 1st resolution, or just an intermediate goal that you're setting up, it should follow the SMART guidelines. Very specific, right? I want to lose weight. Okay. To me, that's not specific enough. If your goal is to lose weight, then you should say, I want to lose 10 pounds. That's very specific. If your goal is to be physically fit, then maybe your specificity will be in, I want X number body fat percentage, or I want X number of pounds of muscle. In order to do this, you have to get feedback, right? So in a weight loss or physical fitness situation, your feedback may be getting a baseline body metric scan, multiple different kinds of scans out there, but that would give you many different baseline points to use to give yourself feedback. How are you performing? If it is something a little more abstract, like I'm going to quit smoking, okay, well, let's look at that. How would we make a specific goal with that? If you want to stop smoking like instantly, then your goal would be specific in the sense of on this day, I'm going to quit smoking completely, zero, cold turkey. Now, on the measurable aspects, so we have specific and then we have measurable. So with the weight loss example, that's pretty easy to see where we can make some measurements. If it was a quit smoking or a quitting drinking, if you're doing it cold turkey, meaning you're not going to do any more on this specific day, from that day on, no more consumption of either of those products. The measurable aspect may be more of a emotional. Like today I had 10 different moments in my day where I struggled really hard because I wanted to consume alcohol or smoke a cigarette. And if you keep measurements like that, you'll start to see this decline in the momentum that you had already established in that habit or that behavior. Because now you'll start to see, oh, well, I only had that craving 5 times today or 3 times, right? So that's a big motivator. Is it actually achievable? The A, that's something to consider. You don't want to set yourself up for failure. And this is how, when you set up a goal, you could create a very smart goal that you can work to achieve. Now, let's look at the action steps. The action steps go in and further divide the SMART goal. So if you want to get promoted at your job, let's say that your New Year's resolution is, I'm going to receive a promotion in my line of work. That's fantastic. So that's a very specific goal, right? You would make it specific in the sense of, I am doing XYZ at this company, and in 6 months, I want to receive this particular promotion. Okay. Is it actually achievable? Is it measurable? So let's look at the measurable aspect. How would you measure that goal? Obviously, one key point is you get the promotion. But can you look at that and break it down into individualized, measurable moments? For example, if your promotion requires a certain level of certification, do you have that certification? That could be an actually achievable spot in the A for SMART. So if you don't have that, then you need to achieve that. So you would make that one of your action steps. I'm going to go get the certification or the training or the number of hours that I need to do in order to be considered for that promotion. If you want to obtain a certain amount of money, let's say you're trying to manifest, or in this next year, one of your goals was to increase your earnings by 10 or 15%. That's a wonderful goal. And you need to start looking at, how would I measure that? So let's say it's $10,000 over the course of 10 months. Well, that would be $1,000 a month. That's very easy to measure. And then you can further break that down into action steps. How are you going to achieve the $1,000 a month? What is already in your tools and resources to scale up to earn that money? For example, let's say you are a salary earner at your current occupation and you have no ability to get overtime. Well, then you wouldn't want to spend extra time at your job to earn that extra $1,000. You would look at a secondary job, a secondary wage earning position in the free time that you have available. It could mean that you're looking at selling some things online. It could mean a lot of different ways of bringing in extra money, but you have to sit down and identify that. So let's go back to feedback. So we've covered some pretty, I would say, common examples of things that people may be wanting to work on. When you look at your feedback loop, who is giving you the feedback? Is it you? Or is it other people? And if it's you or other people, you have to look at the validity of the feedback. So one thing that I find very important to keep people motivated is you want feedback that's honest and positive. So for example, if you're with a group of friends and the old saying, birds of a feather flock together. So, in this particular old saying, it is actually implying that people of a certain energetic vibrational frequency will oftentimes congregate with other people that are vibrating at the same frequency. So, in this particular situation, let's talk about somebody who's wanting to lose weight. Now, if you're already in a group of people that you are congregating with, having fellowship with, that are of physical fitness mind, then you may not have any negative input. But let's say the group of people that you're with are people that do not care about physical fitness, and you're trying to become very interested in that. Can you see how that would be a situation where you might receive negative feedback? So be careful who you receive the feedback from and make sure that it's positive. So it keeps you motivated, keeps you moving in the direction of achieving your goal. Now, anyone can say, only hang around positive influences. I am the first one to say, I know that's difficult to do. Not everybody's going to share your dream, share your vision. So, in this particular situation, what I prescribe to is making sure that I'm hanging out with people that are positive. And if I hear something that's negative, I check it, right? I check it at the door before I let it go into my unconscious or into my whole awareness to say, okay, no, that's not helping me on my goal. You must be honest with yourself. You are the one that's only, to say it most succinctly, you are going to be the only one that dictates whether you succeed or fail. At the end of the day, you could try to point a finger and blame whoever said whatever. That's not going to work. To truly live legendary and accomplish your goals, you must take ownership in your own success. And I can tell, I'm a business owner. I've worked for many different businesses. If a business owner were to say to whoever they're responsible to, because everybody has somebody, whether it's your taxes, whether it's your debtors, people that lent you money, whether it's the employees, like as a business person, I've had employees that I'm responsible for, right? I take that very serious that my success equals my employees' success. So in that particular situation, if I was to turn around and say, oh, well, so and so is the one that made me fail, or it's the economy or politics or whatever the case may be, at the end of the day, I am the only one who can be held accountable and responsible for what I am trying to accomplish. So in the same sense, when it comes to our New Year's resolutions or just trying to make changes in our life, regardless, you are truly the only one who can ultimately be held responsible. So with that being said, what is your feedback loop? How are you receiving information back on how you're doing? How are you being successful? Let's take it back to, why do we wait till January 1? So this is kind of bringing it all home. We wait until January 1 oftentimes because we're trying to do something that we've been trying to do for years, decades. And it's like, oh, there's like a common energy, like everyone's doing it. So I'm going to do it too. But oftentimes we set ourselves up for failure because we already know this is going to be a very complicated thing. So keeping that feedback loop is very important. And if a feedback loop is so important and the frequency of it is so important, then why not do the same type of exercise at least once a month at a minimum? January 1, February 1, March 1, April 1. Check back in with yourself. How am I doing on this goal? And, failure is not like the end of everything. Failure really doesn't exist. Those are just challenges and opportunities to learn and grow. I love what somebody has said many times. It's not failure, it's just feedback. So if you look at it like that, then you don't scrap your goal. So many people are like, oh, I failed. I'm done. I'm just going to go back to the easy path, the path that I used to do, I've been doing, where all the momentum is. And instead, they should be saying, oh, this is feedback. What happened? Where did I go wrong? How can I make some shifts to stay on task, to stay on target, to achieve my goal? Remember, we don't jump from one floor to the next. We climb numerous stairs, one step at a time. So when you find your goal, whatever your goal is, write it down on paper. Why? It materializes it. It takes it out of your brain and puts it into the real world on paper. And there's value in that because then you can go back and read it. Now, additionally, once you develop your goal and it's smart, specific, measurable, actually able to happen, realistic, and timed, once you figure that out, then you could start subdividing into action steps. And those are key. The action steps should be like taking one step at a time to go up the stairway. Same thing with our action steps to achieve our goal. Break your goal down into manageable, bite-sized pieces, and then you can do what we call positive reflection. You can positively look at everything that's going on in your world because you're receiving the feedback. because you've broken your goal down into action steps that are bite sized, easy to manage pieces, you will have positive ability to celebrate. You'll have positive outcomes that you could say, these are wins. I am making wins in the direction of my goal. So, this is my challenge to all of you. Treat each first of the month as a new year, right? This is a new opportunity for me to continue to live legendary. It's a new opportunity for me to make shifts, to make some changes in my direction. And changes in direction equal changes in outcome. I know this has gone a little bit longer than I intended, but these are some key points that I've just been thinking about a lot. It's like every day when you wake up, it's a new life. I was looking at some interesting research that's coming out with timelines and shifts in timelines. And I just sat down for a minute and had kind of a geek out moment with myself. I was like, hmm. So if I was to be at a point in my life where I'm making a decision and I choose this way versus this way, is that a timeline shift? Is this a new reality? And then I kind of further divided that down into, well, I make lots of decisions every day. So there's lots of alternate timelines that could be happening just with my life. Now, I know that sounds kind of wild and crazy. And where is Kyle going with this? All I'm saying is every time you make a decision, it's a new reality because that new decision opens up a whole nother set of possibilities. So think about that. Every morning, it's like a new opportunity, a new breath of fresh air that you can make awesome changes to your reality. So if you keep making the same decisions, you'll get the same outcome, which then equals the same reality. And if you're unhappy with your reality, then let's go backwards on that. If you're unhappy with the reality, start changing your outcomes. And how do you change your outcomes? It starts with changing your decisions. And changing your decisions is very simple. It starts with a SMART goal, right? Writing down what you want, identifying the shifts that you need to take, the action steps, and then make them into bite sized pieces so you can take small, subtle steps in the direction that you want to go. Super excited that you guys are here. And I am loving this new channel, this new concept of helping people become legendary. And I am so excited about some new podcasts that are coming out. And if you do want to work with me one on one, please reach out in the comments. You can also reach out through our email. And just anyway, would love to work with each and every one of you and help you guys live legendary lives. Thank you very much.